So I want to do a quick update for those of you who follow the channel. If you hang out, I also have a little snippet at the end that I removed from my last video and I wanted to show it here. It didn't really fit in with the disappearance of Hale Boggs and Nick Bykick, so I wound up cutting it a couple hours after I published the video on their crash. But I wanted to drop it in here because I thought it was an interesting topic on the history of aviation. But first, I'm about 6 months into doing these accident recreations and I've been learning a few things along the way. Apparently, there isn't much interest in Alaska. I've done 3 videos on crashes in that state, and they've been by far the worst performing as far as views go. I'm not sure if this has something to do with the suggested videos algorithm that Google uses, but it's a little bit unfortunate. Alaska's rich in the history of aviation. I enjoy telling those stories, but I'm making like $6 per video doing it, and they take about 12 hours to make between research, script, shooting, and editing. I'm not really doing this for the money. I'll get to that towards the end, but I would like to be able to add production value to the videos that I'm making, and I'm never going to get there if I'm only doing a couple thousand views per video, so I'm probably going to stay away from Alaska for a little while at least. And I know that some of you really like the crime noir narrative that I've been using, but I think combining aviation with crime noir might be a little too narrow of a niche. There have been about as many complaints as there have been compliments, so I'm going to modify how I write these scripts a little bit. The noir style is a natural fit when you're dealing with death, which obviously you do when you're talking about aviation accidents, so there's still going to be a little bit of that in my narratives, but I'm going to focus more on analyzing and describing the events and less on that narrative voice. And finally, I'm trying to chart a path going forwards. I'm going to keep doing small aircraft accident analysis, but I think that I need to branch out a little bit too. In my last video, I mentioned the mystery of Malaysia Air 370, and one of you commented that you would like for me to wrap that video back around to this particular mystery. I know there's a lot of coverage already on these big crashes, but most of it focuses on what happened. Equally important is what happened because of it, how society changed or how regulations changed. So I would have a slightly different focus from what others have already done. I would also retain the broad narrative style that I've been using, which I know many of you like because it relates the details in a more emotionally impactful way. It isn't so much about the academics of what happened, although those are still important, but about how these tragedies can be made useful for people who are making critical decisions in order to keep them away from a similar outcome. Another direction I could go in is to recreate some historical moments in aviation. The Wright brothers, Lindbergh, Earhart. The clip I cut from the last video is a good example of this. Here's a quick view of it. Amelia Earhart's down there too. A few thousand tons of salt water interning her in her twin-engine tomb. There's a long and sordid history of aircraft being swallowed whole by the deep. Roosevelt dispatched to Lexington in a futile search to find the famed aviator. The aircraft carrier hauled around 63 aircraft to project U.S. power prior to the war. It was tasked for a period with rescuing one of America's most beloved women. Lexington was swallowed by the Pacific Ocean in 1942 during the Battle of Coral Sea. Another pioneer in the history of aviation, the Battle of Coral Sea was the first naval action in history in which opposing fleets neither sighted nor fired on each other. Everything was done by aircraft beyond line of sight. Though the Lexington was sunk, it was a strategic victory for Allied forces. The Japanese forces withdrew from the region without occupying Port Moresby or Tulagai, their intended targets. It was the first time that the Japanese fleet had been forced to turn back since Pearl Harbor. I used a modern aircraft carrier in that one, the USS George Bush, but there are add-ons for World War II era boats and aircraft that I could use as well. Historically, the military is a big part of the development of aviation, and it's interesting to think about how technological developments during wartime feeds into civilian uses in peacetime. It may also be relevant going forward depending upon what happens between Taiwan and China. If there's a naval conflict on scale, aviation is going to be right in the middle of it. And I've always loved naval aviation. If you look at the astronauts who went to the moon, a disproportionate number of them were naval aviators. I like all the military, but naval aviation holds a special place in my heart. These guys are taking huge chances every time they catapult off an aircraft carrier, and their landings can best be described as controlled crashes. I'll probably do both type of videos going forward, military and accident analysis, but if you prefer one over the other, just drop it into the comments below. Now this leads me to a third point, which I mentioned earlier and is a little bit sticky, and that's monetizing these videos. I'm a working pilot and not really planning on changing that. And I've got enough steaks in the freezer, so monetizing doesn't have to do with buying a sports car. It's more about being able to add production value to these videos. I have an aspiration to get a haul of people out to a sand dune somewhere in order to recreate the Wright brothers' glider trials and eventually their first powered flight. I don't know if I'll ever be able to do it, but if I do, it's going to cost some serious money. What that means is that I need to probably branch out a little more into a broader audience in order to get the number of views that I need in order to do these types of projects. At the very least, I'd like to be able to increase the production values of the videos that I'm doing right now, and obviously that takes some money. My intention is to take all the YouTube money that I get and wrap it back around into these productions. I've already done that. I've spent more than I made so far on equipment and software. That said, it also doesn't hurt to have a little vacation money to help my wife feel better about all the hours I'm spending in the office working on these things. If you like the content and want more, I've got a couple booklets available on Amazon. If you buy those, it'll keep my wife happy. I'll drop links for those of you who are interested. I've gotten a suggestion also to make an audio version of those booklets, so look for that to come in the near future. Again, with these books, I have a couple directions that I can go in. I have a crime noir book. Obviously, it's not aviation, but I know some of you like the crime noir narrative that I've done. It's called the Satoshi Nakamoto Hypothesis. It's about a Bitcoin billionaire that's told in the hard-boiled detective style. And I have an accent recreation stuff as well. I've been published in Flying Magazine, Twin and Turbine, Redbird Flight Simulators. All those articles have been on aviation safety, so it's something I'm familiar with. If you prefer one style of books going forward, just drop it in the comments. It'll help me to figure out which direction to go in. If I do well enough with that, I won't have to show for anyone else, and I'll be able to use some of that money to make future videos as well. For those of you who have subscribed, thanks. For those of you who haven't, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications when new videos drop. Be safe out there.